He opened it to bring out his phone. There was a lot of stacked dollars lying carelessly in the briefcase. Mrs. Chigozie froze for a moment at the sight of the currency. She was dumbfounded but managed to let out a warm smile as she left the room. Nkechi moved closer to Mr. Chigozie and whispered something to his ears. "God forbid," Mr. Chigozie shouted, staring at his wife in disbelief. "Let's kill him and dump his body in the bush and then take all his money and start a new life free from poverty," she concluded, holding her husband's hand. Many years ago, in the village of Ozofia, there lived a family named Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie. Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie were very poor that they could not afford the basic necessities of life. They struggled to eat 2 square meals a day, not to talk of making ends meet. Mr. Okafor Chigozie got married to Nkechi, his wife, even though things were not going so well financially for him at the time. He got married with the hope that if he did, probably things would become better for him, as he would also receive the blessings that accompanied marriage, as he had always heard elders say. But 10 years down the line, instead of things to take an upward turn, it rather took a downward trend. Mr. Chigozie was a farmer who didn't own a piece of land, but rather he rented a piece of land he needed to cultivate crops every year. Things were so difficult for the family the previous year that he could not pay the owner of his farmland the agreed rent on the land. The owner of the farmland was so angry that he refused to lend Okafor the land despite several pleas and explanations he gave on the situation of things. So, Okafor started to do manual labor for farmers who needed more hands to work for them in their farm, and in return, he was paid stipends for his services and given some food items from the farm he worked. Mrs. Nkechi Chigozie was a hairdresser who could not afford the luxury of owning her own salon, so instead she took her services to people that needed them. One hot afternoon, Mrs. Nkechi Chigozie sat on a chair inside their house as she reminisced on past events and their financial situation. Her hands were on her chin, unaware of her surroundings. She felt life hasn't been fair to her and her husband. They were not lazy, she thought out loud, but yet it doesn't show. As she immersed herself in her thoughts, Emeka, their son, walked into the house without Nkechi even noticing him. "Mama, I'm hungry," Emeka shouted. Apparently, Emeka has been talking for some time now, but felt ignored. Hence, he increased his voice, which startled Nkechi for a bit. She jerked back to reality as she looked at her son, who was standing before her. "What did you say?" he asked, this time paying attention. "I said I am hungry," Emeka replied. "You are always hungry. Please don't stress me, oh. Didn't you just eat some hours ago?" "Mama, I drank garri and now I'm hungry." "Or don't you know that garri is not food? Some children are praying for that same garri you are condemning, Emeka. Learn to be grateful," she said, staring at her son. "But Mama, I have not eaten anything since morning except garri, and this is afternoon," he said, holding his stomach. "My stomach is aching me," he added, almost in tears. However, Mrs. Chigozie pleaded with Emeka to be a little bit patient and assured him that when his father returns, they would have something to eat. Emeka left the room with a little smile to go play with his friends outside. That evening, Okafor came home with some maize which was given to him at the farm he had worked that day. The maize was boiled by Mrs. Nkechi and was taken as dinner by the whole family. The Chigozies could not afford to send their three children to a private school as they had deeply desired in their hearts because of financial constraints. Hence, they attended the only public school that was in the village, which was miles away from their home. So, Emeka and his siblings trekked the distance to and fro school every day. Emeka was a very intelligent boy who always came first in his class every term. Despite all odds, he was the smartest boy in his class. He taught some of his friends subjects they find difficult during break or after school, and in return for his help, they always took it upon themselves to buy him lunch during break time. Emeka was a very hardworking boy as he always went with his father to work on people's farmland during holidays and the weekend. At his age, he tried as much as possible to assist his parents and help them in the little way possible. He knew he was the first child of his parents, and as such, he needed to be good examples to his siblings. It was on one of such cool evenings in Ozofia village that Ifeoma, Nkechi's elder sister, came down from Lagos to visit the family after a long time. Nkechi was very surprised to see her but was very excited as they exchanged pleasantries and tried to catch up with old times. Though Ifeoma was surprised by the way things had deteriorated financially with them, she wondered why things had gone nuts for them. After all the catching up was done, Ifeoma made her concern known to Nkechi. "My dear sister, what is going on? I am really surprised at the situation of things. I thought things would have improved since the last time I was here." My dear sister, this has been very difficult for us, to the extent that my husband could not afford to rent a piece of land like he normally does and had to resort to manual labor to sustain the family, she said in tears. "Please don't cry, my dear sister. I know things will get better some days," she said as she consoled her sister. Mrs. Ifeoma, Nkechi's sister, lives in Lagos with her two children. She had lost her husband to the cold hands of death some years ago and has since then been the only one taking care of the children after her husband's demise. Her husband's family seized all their property and threw them out of the house. She had to pick the remaining pieces of her life together as she did her best to raise the children alone. She wished she could be of help to her sister in order to reduce the financial burden the family was going through. But what could she do? Her hands were tied, considering her own circumstances. 3 days later, Ifeoma left for Lagos and gave the family some money to buy some food items that was needed in the house. Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie thanked Ifeoma with sincere gratitude as they bid her farewell. Some months later, Ifeoma returned from Lagos and came to Ozofia village to visit Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie. That evening, she told Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie why she had visited. "I am here to take Emeka with me to the city, if you would agree." Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie looked at each other with surprise in their faces. You mean you want to take Emeka with you to Lagos?" Mr. Chigozie asked, stammering. "Yes," Ifeoma affirmed. I want to take Emeka with me to Lagos. I don't like the present situation of things in this family, and ever since I left some months ago, I have been thinking of ways to help the family. So, I was told by a friend of mine of a family in need of a houseboy. She stammered, her eyes fixed at Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie to see their reaction. I thought about Emeka, how smart and hardworking he is, and I think it is best Emeka goes to Lagos and live there as a houseboy, where he would at least not be hungry anymore, and in return, the family would be sending some money to you people every month, she concluded. I want the both of you to think through it and let me know your decision by tomorrow. That night, Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie could not sleep as the thought of Emeka leaving them and becoming a houseboy in a faraway city scared them. They also knew that Ifeoma was trying to help in her own little way. That night, Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie decided that they would allow Emeka go to the city with Ifeoma, though it was a very hard decision for them to make. The next day, Mr. Chigozie told Ifeoma that they had decided that they would let Emeka, their son, go with her to the city. Mrs. Nkechi begged her sister Ifeoma to do a proper investigation on the family she was taking Emeka to, and also to take Emeka to the family herself. She promised to take Emeka to the family herself in order to have a proper conversation with the family. When the news got to Emeka, Emeka was not happy. He cried and begged his parents that he didn't want to leave the village. He thought about his friends and siblings and how he would really miss them. Emeka, my son, I know it is not easy, but you have to be a man. We would really miss you, but this is the best thing to do right now, Mr. Chigozie said, patting Emeka's back. Emeka hugged his parents and siblings with tears flowing down his cheeks as he bid them farewell. Ifeoma patted Emeka's back as she held his hands and as they walked their way down to the local park. As Ifeoma had earlier promised, every month the people Emeka stayed with sent money to Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie, and they were glad that they kept to their promise. Even with the little stipend sent to the family, they still struggled with their finances and could barely keep up. 1 year later, Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie stopped receiving money from Emeka's people. First, they thought probably they were not financially buoyant that month, and so could not afford to send money down, and they totally understood. But after the third month of them not sending money, Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie became worried. They looked for someone who was going to Lagos and knew Ifeoma's house to help them tell Ifeoma of the current situation of things, and that she should please check up on Emeka for them with the family he stayed with. Few days later, the message got to Ifeoma, and she quickly went to the house where Emeka and the family lived to check up with Emeka and the family to see if everything was okay. But on getting there, the house was locked and there was nobody she could ask any question about the whereabouts of the family. The next day, she went there again, and to her surprise, the house was still locked. She became really worried as she was visibly shaking from fear. She saw a neighbor drive out from the next compound, and she summoned the courage to inquire from the neighbor the whereabouts of the family. The neighbor replied that he does not really know much about the family, and that all he knows is that they sold their house and that they no longer live there. Tears filled Ifeoma's eyes as the neighbor drove away. "What have I gotten myself into?" she said, crying. "I was only trying to help. Why would a family sell their own house and leave no clue as to where they now live to their neighbors? She hurried to her friend's shop, who had earlier introduced the family to her, and narrated her ordeal to her. She was shocked as well, as she did not know that the family had sold their house and left. Ifeoma's friend tried every means to get news from the family, but all her effort proved abortive, as no one seems to know anything about them. After Ifeoma's efforts to find Emeka proved abortive, Ifeoma had no other option than to return to the village to break the news of the sudden disappearance of Emeka and the family he stayed with. Nkechi could not take the news, as she cried day and night, thinking about what could have befallen her dear son Emeka. These rich people are wicked. These rich people are wicked, she said one afternoon, crying inside the room. They have used my innocent son for money rituals, she said, crying. They used my dear Emeka for money rituals and sold their house so that we would not be able to trace them. It will not be well with them, Nkechi said, wailing. Mr. Chigozie tried to console his wife, but she remained unconsolable. I wished we did not send Emeka away as a houseboy to this evil family. Emeka would still be here with us. Emeka's father, Mr. Chigozie, had been a shadow of himself ever since he got the news of the disappearance of his son. He tried to take it all in, bearing the pain as the man of the house, but deep down he was broken. He felt he had failed his son by giving him out to a complete stranger. He could barely sleep at night, and when he did catch some sleep, he always had terrible nightmares of his son pursuing him or crying, looking dejected. Ifeoma promised the family that she would never give up and that she would continue to search for Emeka and the strange family. But as years went by, everyone had to live with the reality of Emeka's disappearance. "Hello, good evening," a stranger said, greeting Amadi, Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie's neighbor's son. "Good evening, sir," he greeted back, staring at the stranger admiringly. "How can I help you, sir?" he asked, looking at his fine suitcase. "Well, I am a stranger here and I don't know my way around. Please, where can I get a hotel to spend the night?" he requested, looking at Amadi. Amadi burst into a prolonged laughter. You must really be a stranger. How can you be looking for a hotel in Ozofa village?" he asked, looking surprised. When he could finally catch his breath from prolonged laughter, he looked at the stranger and said, "I'm sorry, sir. There is no hotel in Ozofia village. The only available hotel is 2 villages away," he concluded. The stranger was so surprised. "Okay, thank you very much," he whispered. "Oh my God, it's already past 9 o'clock. How do I get to the next 2 villages so as to get where to sleep?" he thought to himself. "It's too late. I can't put myself under such a risk," he concluded within himself as he wandered away, looking for any place he could get to lay his head until the next morning. He saw Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie sitting in front of their house, and his attention was drawn to them. Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie were sitting outside, receiving evening fresh air as their evening routine has always been. "Maybe I should just beg these people to spend the night in their house," he thought. He hesitated for a bit, but found himself moving to their direction. "Good evening, sir." "Good evening, ma," he greeted them. "Good evening, my dear." They responded to his greeting in unison as they stared at the stranger in front of them. "Please, sir, I am a stranger in this village. I came in very late and I was looking for a hotel to spend the night, but I was told that there is no hotel in this village. Please, can I spend the night in your house? And I promise by tomorrow morning I will be gone. Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie exchanged a brief glance at each other for some seconds. Okay, no problem, Mrs. Chigozie finally said. Bring your briefcase. Let me help you carry it while I show you to the room you would be spending the night in. Thank you very much, ma, he said, smiling as he followed Mrs. Chigozie into the room. As they entered the room, Mrs. Chigozie smiled at the stranger. Please, make yourself comfortable, oh? Thank you very much, ma. I really appreciate your kind gesture, he smiled, reaching out for his briefcase from Mrs. Chigozie. He opened it to bring out his phone. There was a lot of stacked dollars lying carelessly in the briefcase. Mrs. Chigozie froze for a moment at the sight of the currency. She was dumbfounded but managed to let out a warm smile as she left the room. Mrs. Nkechi went outside to join her husband as she told Mr. Chigozie about all she had encountered in the room within the few minutes she spent with him. Eh? Mr. Chigozie exclaimed with a voice a little above whisper. Meaning that young man must be very rich, oh? He inquired. My husband, he is stinkingly rich. For the first time in my life, I laid my eyes on foreign currency, she whispered, and with what I can deduce, it's like he just came back from a foreign land, cause his accent is different, she added. Nkechi moved closer to Mr. Chigozie and whispered something to his ears. God forbid, Mr. Chigozie shouted, staring at his wife in disbelief. Please, my husband, I think God has brought this opportunity to us as our escape out of poverty, she said in a very low tone. No, we can't commit murder. We can't kill an innocent young man just because we want to buy our way out of poverty. God's blessings never come in such a manner, he argued. We need this money, oh. We need this money. I am tired of this kind of life. If you are not tired, I am. I am tired of poverty. If not for poverty, would we have sent our dear Emeka away to go live with a strange family we know nothing about? As a houseboy, she said, sobbing silently, going down memory lane of how she lost her dear son to a wicked family. This was a wound she had nursed for years now, yet it refused to heal. It's been 20 years since the unfortunate disappearance of her son, yet it felt like yesterday. The pain she felt never left. Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie just managed to forge ahead. Poverty must die tonight, oh, Nkechi said to her husband. But what if people find that? Mr. Chigozie whispered hesitantly. How would they find that? Nobody knows about him in this village. He is nothing but a stranger. Even if they know about him, nobody knows that he passed the night here, she whispered to her husband. Let's kill him and dump his body in the bush and then take all his money and start a new life free from poverty, she concluded, holding her husband's hand. Mr. Chigozie went to the kitchen to get the knife they would use to perform their evil plot. They went outside to discuss briefly on how they would execute their plot. When they were done, they went to the room where the stranger was sleeping. He was sleeping so peacefully and calmly, unaware of the impending danger looming. Mr. Chigozie raised the knife to execute their plan, but he could not. He hurried out of the room, and Mrs. Chigozie followed him, both of them crying as they hugged each other. What has come over us? He said in a whisper. This is not us. This can't be us. I can't believe we thought about killing an innocent man because of money, he said, sobbing. Then, We are not anything different from the family that killed Emeka, our son. That night, they begged God for forgiveness before they slept. The next day, the stranger woke up very early and got dressed. As he prepared to leave Mr. and Mrs. Chigoze's house, he thanked them for their hospitality and how grateful he was to them for taking him in, even when he was a total stranger. He gave them a bundle of notes as appreciation. Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie danced in excitement as they prayed for him and praised his generosity. He inquired from them the direction of the Igwe's palace, and Mr. Chigozie gave him direction as to where the palace was located. On getting to the palace, the stranger narrated the little he could remember about his parents to the Igwe and asked the Igwe if he had any clue as to whether his parents were still alive or, better still, in the village. "What is your name?" the Igwe inquired, baffled at his story. "My name is Emeka Chigozie," he added. "I cannot remember any other thing, cause I was a little boy when I left this village years ago." The Igwe, on hearing his name, whispered to one of his bodyguard as the bodyguard hurriedly left. Few minutes later, Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie entered the palace. They greeted the Igwe, wondering why they were summoned to the palace. The Igwe turned to Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie, pointing at Emeka. "This young man here is your son." Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie was dumbfounded as they felt that they didn't hear the Igwe properly. "Our son? How?" they both chorused. Emeka stood, recognizing them as the people that hosted him to their home the previous day. Nkechi ran towards Emeka. As her hands quivered, she tried to reach out to Emeka and touch his face. "Emeka," she said, trembling, with hot tears flowing down her cheeks. "Mama," Emeka said, crying like a child. Mr. Chigozie ran to join them as he held his son's hand tightly. "My son, so you are still alive," he said, with uncontrollable tears flowing down his eyes. "We thought you were dead. We thought we had lost you," Mr. Chigozie said. "We thought they used you for money ritual," Mrs. Chigozie added. Emeka hugged his parents and led them to a chair to sit as he narrated everything that had transpired to them. After a year of living with Mr. and Mrs. Desmond, the family got a lottery to travel abroad. They were so overjoyed at this, although they were very rich. They had always had plans of relocating abroad. Since I was very helpful to them and their children, they saw me as their lucky charm and couldn't bear sending me back to the village. So they decided to take me with them to the US. They made their traveling abroad discreet as they didn't want people to know much about it. From what they told me, they said they tried to reach my auntie's friend to tell her about the new developments but could not get through to her, and they had limited time frame before traveling. So they adopted me as their child and we all traveled together. When we got to the US, I was put in a good school. Mr. and Mrs. Desmond took care of me like their own. Years later, I graduated from one of the best universities in the US with a very good grade. I got a job and yet could not reach you people in the village to share with you how life has changed for me. I was worried and decided to try my luck by coming back to the village to see if you people are still here, he said, holding their hands. Papa, Mama, God has blessed me abundantly and I want you all to join me in benefiting from his blessings. God used Mr. and Mrs. Desmond to change my life in a way that I can't explain, and I am forever grateful to God and to them for impacting my life. Ah, may God bless that family, Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie said. They were so happy and they talked on and on and on. Mrs. Chigozie thanked God that she didn't allow greed cause her to kill her own son. She wouldn't have been able to forgive herself, she thought within herself. She danced and danced and danced until her legs started to ache as they went home. A month later, Emeka built a house for his beloved parents. Majority of the materials used in building the house was imported. Within 2 months, the house was ready, fully furnished. It was a house that has never been built in the whole of Ozofia village, and Emeka also built a hotel in Ozofia village, the first of its kind. Villagers were happy at the turn of events for the Chigozies as they now lived in affluence. 6 months later, Emeka took his younger siblings abroad, and Mr. and Mrs. Chigozie went to the US from time to time on vacations to visit them. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel to enjoy more interesting African tales. Also, share with us in the comment section what you love about the story and the valuable lesson you have learned from this story. Like and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Till I come your way again, for now, it's bye.